Hey everyone, welcome back. So in our last few explainers, we've really dug into the data on Taiwan's top universities, right? We've covered NTU, NCCU, NYCU, and NCKU. Well, today, we're completing the picture. We're turning our spotlight onto a real powerhouse located right in Taiwan's Silicon Valley, National Tsinghua University. Let's get right into its report card.
So, the big question is this. When you cut through all the noise, how does Tsinghua actually measure up against the other top dogs? We're going to use the latest data to peel back the layers, department by department, and see where it's absolutely killing it and where it's facing some serious competition. This is its full, no-holds-barred report card.
But hold on. Before we jump into the rankings, we need to be on the same page about how we're keeping score. How do we even measure something like the popularity, or you could say the hotness, of a university program? Turns out, it's a little more complex than just one number.
The key is what we call the popularity index. It's actually a blend of two super important things. First, you've got rank order. This is all about exclusivity. Basically, how good do your grades need to be to even get an offer in the first place? Then you've got the fill rate. This is about desirability. Of all the top students who get an offer, how many actually say yes and choose to enroll? You put those two together, and you get a much clearer picture of where a program really stands.
Okay, so now that we know how we're measuring this, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. In the grand scheme of Taiwan's top 5 universities, where does Tsinghua land?
So this chart pretty much lays out the pecking order. And look, National Taiwan University, or NTU, is just in a whole different league. No surprise there. But right below that, you see this really tight race for second place. Tsinghua is sitting solidly in third, right behind its neighbor in Hsinchu, NYCU, but with a pretty comfortable lead over NCKU and NCCU. The data is clear. NTHU is without a doubt a top-tier university.
Now let's get into the fun stuff. Let's zoom in on the programs that really power this top-tier reputation. These are Tsinghua's crown jewels, the departments that really define what makes it so elite.
And this slide right here highlights a super fierce local rivalry. NTHU's electrical engineering program is a beast. There's absolutely no question about it. But when you put it side by side with NYCU's program, you can see the challenge. NYCU has traditionally been the leader in this space, and the numbers show they still have a major edge. So while NTHU is a top contender, it's not quite the king of the hill just yet.
And you know what? It's a pretty similar story when you look at the battle for the best coders. NTHU's computer science program is firmly in that second tier of elite programs across the country. It's incredibly competitive, don't get me wrong, but as the data shows, it's still looking up at the undisputed champion, NTU. So yeah, it's a top-tier choice, for sure, just not the top choice.
But this is where Tsinghua is making some huge moves. The real buzz, the fastest rising star in its entire lineup, is this interdisciplinary program. You see, students are absolutely flocking to these more flexible, cross-functional degrees that mix the best of both worlds. This is bringing a massive wave of new energy and prestige to the university.
All right, let's keep going and see how this plays out across the rest of the university. So beyond those absolute star players, what does the data tell us about the broader landscape of what NTHU has to offer?
Well, Tsinghua's strength runs deep and wide across science and engineering. I'm talking about departments like material science, power mechanical engineering, and chemical engineering. They form this incredibly strong and competitive core. And that strength extends to the foundational sciences like physics and more applied fields like industrial engineering. In a lot of these areas, NTHU is right there with, or sometimes even ahead of, its main rivals. But the moment we step outside of the STEM fields, the picture really changes. In business, you've got programs like quantitative finance and economics. They're solid, but they just don't have that same national pull as the programs at NTU or NCCU. And this is even more true for humanities, social sciences, and education. For everything from Chinese and foreign languages to the different education programs, the popularity scores tell a clear story. If a student is laser-focused on these fields, Tsinghua probably isn't their first choice.
Okay, a snapshot in time is one thing, but the real story, the juicy stuff, is in the trends. Which parts of the university are heating up, and which are cooling down? Looking at the change in popularity over 4 years is incredibly revealing. And wow, this contrast just couldn't be more stark. On one side, you have that interdisciplinary tech program, the College of ECS bachelor's program, just skyrocketing in popularity. And on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the foreign languages department has seen the biggest drop. This one slide, it perfectly captures the massive shift that's happening, not just at Tsinghua, but across all of higher education in Taiwan.
So why is this happening? Well, the answers are all around us, really. First, you have the semiconductor boom, with giants like TSMC literally on NTHU's doorstep in Hsinchu. The demand for engineers is just insatiable. Then you've got the global rise of AI, which has basically supercharged the value of any computer science degree. And at the exact same time, all of this has put immense pressure on humanities programs, where the career paths are often seen as less direct and less profitable.
So what does all this mean for Tsinghua's overall strategy? Well, first off, it's riding that tech wave perfectly. But the data suggests its neighbor, NYCU, is catching an even bigger part of that wave, especially in core electrical engineering. Second, without a medical school, it's completely missing out on the high-demand, always popular field of medicine. But here's the flip side. Because humanities were never its core identity, their nationwide decline actually hurts NTHU less than it hurts a university like NCCU, which has so much invested in those areas.
Okay, we've looked at the overall rankings, we've gone through the individual departments, and we've analyzed the major trends. Let's pull this all together and give National Tsinghua University a final, clear-cut scorecard.
This scorecard really paints a specific picture. On the one hand, NTHU's strengths are obvious, and they're deeply tied to its location and its focus. You've got top-tier engineering, amazing material science, and those innovative interdisciplinary programs that just thrive in Hsinchu. But on the other hand, the weaknesses show you exactly what NTHU is not. It doesn't have a medical school, it's not a national leader in business or humanities, and it's constantly in the shadow of its biggest rival, NYCU, right next door.
And all of this brings us to one powerful summary statement. You could argue that NTUU is the strongest comprehensive science and engineering university in Taiwan, once you take the two giants, NTU and NYCU, out of the equation. But, and this is a big but, its success is deeply, fundamentally tied to the fortunes of the tech industry.
And that leaves us with this one last crucial question to think about. In an economy that's always changing, is this deep specialization in technology Tsinghua's greatest strength, the thing that will keep it relevant for decades? Or is it a hidden risk, tying the university's fate a little too closely to a single, notoriously cyclical industry? The answer to that is really going to define its future.